The colony ship Meridian's Hope drifted through the outer reach, a region of space the Galactic Council had designated as unclaimed frontier. Captain Sarah Chin stood on the bridge, watching her daughter Emma play with holographic puzzles in the corner. The 7-year-old laughed as she solved patterns that would challenge most adults. Earth had joined the galactic community only 5 years ago. Humans were the newest species, the primitives who had barely mastered faster-than-light travel. The Council had given humanity 3 small systems in the galactic rim, far from the centers of power. Most species saw humans as weak, their technology crude, their lifespan short. "Captain, we're detecting a vessel approaching," announced Lieutenant Marcus Park. "Configuration unknown." Sarah's spine straightened. Unknown ships in the outer reach rarely meant good news. "Shields up. Hail them." The view screen flickered to life. A creature appeared, its body covered in chitinous plates, 4 eyes glowing amber. Behind it, Sarah could see dozens more of its kind. The species was unmistakable, Krixtar, one of the Council's founding races. "Human vessel," the alien's voice clicked and hissed through the translator. "You carry a child. We require specimens for our genetic archives. Surrender the juvenile and you may continue." Sarah's blood turned to ice. "Absolutely not. My daughter is not a specimen." The Krixtar commander tilted its head. "You misunderstand your position, human. We are archivists. For 10,000 years, we have collected genetic samples from every species. Your species is new. We require samples. Cooperation is expected." And I said no. Sarah's hand moved to the weapons console. The Meridian's Hope was a colony ship, lightly armed, no match for the Krixtar destroyer facing them. "Your vessel is inferior," the commander stated flatly. "Your weapons are primitive. You have 30 seconds to comply, or we will take the child by force. You may choose death or cooperation." Sarah looked at Emma, who had stopped playing and was watching with wide, frightened eyes. Every maternal instinct screamed at her to protect her daughter. "All hands, battle stations. Marcus, get Emma to the escape pod." "Captain, we can't win this fight," Marcus said quietly. "I know. But we can make them remember us." The Krixtar ship fired. Brilliant blue beams tore through the Meridian's Hope's shields like paper. The ship shuddered violently. Consoles exploded in showers of sparks. Sarah held onto her chair as the deck tilted. "Hull breaches on decks 3 and 5. Shields failing," someone shouted. Marcus grabbed Emma, running toward the escape pod bay. But before they could reach safety, a section of the wall simply vanished, dissolved by Krixtar cutting beams. Armored figures materialized, boarding drones phasing through the damaged hull. Emma screamed as mechanical arms seized her. Marcus fought, firing his sidearm, but the drone's shields absorbed the shots effortlessly. Sarah ran toward her daughter, but an energy net wrapped around her, pinning her to the deck. "Mommy?" Emma's voice echoed through the dying ship. "Emma? Emma?" Sarah thrashed against the net, her voice raw with desperation. The last thing she saw was her daughter's terrified face before the drones phased back through the hull, taking Emma with them. The Krixtar ship's tractor beam released the Meridian's Hope, leaving it crippled and drifting. Sarah lay on the deck, the energy net dissipating. Around her, the bridge crew picked themselves up from the wreckage. Fires burned. Alarms wailed. And her daughter was gone. "Get me a connection to Earth," Sarah said, her voice hollow. "Now." It took 6 hours to establish communication. When Fleet Admiral James Richardson's face appeared on the screen, Sarah was still sitting in the same spot, surrounded by debris, blood dried on her forehead. "Captain Chin, we received your distress signal." "What happened?" Sarah's eyes, when she looked at the Admiral, held something that made him lean back. Not grief, grief would come later. What burned in her eyes was pure, cold rage. "The Krixtar took my daughter," she said quietly. "They called her a specimen. They said they're archivists, that they've been collecting genetic samples for 10,000 years. They took her like she was a lab rat." Richardson's jaw clenched. "The Krixtar are a council species. We'll file a diplomatic protest." "Diplomatic protest?" Sarah laughed, a sound without humor. "Admiral, they didn't ask. They didn't negotiate. They attacked a colony ship and kidnapped a 7-year-old child. If we file a protest, the council will deliberate for years. By then Emma could be..." Her voice broke. Richardson was silent for a moment. "What are you asking me, Captain?" "I'm asking you what humanity does when someone takes our children, sir." The Admiral's expression hardened. "We bring them home, Captain. We bring them all home." The Galactic Council convened on the ring world of Centrum, a massive structure that encircled an entire star. Representatives from 63 species gathered in the Great Chamber, a space so vast that artificial gravity fields kept delegates from different worlds comfortable simultaneously. Ambassador Thomas Webb stood at the human podium, dwarfed by the immense hall. Around him, aliens of every conceivable form lounged, floated, or perched on customized seats. Most weren't even paying attention. The High Counselor, a being of pure energy contained in a crystalline matrix, addressed the assembly. The human delegation has requested an emergency session. Ambassador Webb, you may speak. Thomas's hands gripped the podium. He'd spent 3 days traveling to Centrum, 3 days during which Emma Chin remained in Krikstar custody. Honored Council, 5 days ago, the Krikstar attacked a human colony vessel in unclaimed space. They kidnapped a 7-year-old child, claiming the right to collect her as a genetic specimen. We demand her immediate return. A ripple of clicks, whistles and other sounds, laughter, Thomas realized, spread through the chamber. The Krikstar counselor rose, its chitinous plates gleaming. The human exaggerates. We did not kidnap. We exercised our ancient right as archivists. For millennia, we have maintained the genetic archive, preserving samples from every council species. The humans are new to the galactic community. They did not understand our request, and unfortunately, their primitive aggression forced us to secure the sample by other means. Sample? Thomas's voice rose. You mean a child? A living, breathing child with a mother who... Ambassador Webb, the High Counselor interrupted, its voice reverberating through the chamber. Control your emotions. The Krikstar archive has existed for 10,000 years. It is recognized under Council Law, Code 447b. Every member species has contributed genetic materials. Every species consented, Thomas shot back. You didn't ask for consent. You attacked a defenseless ship and took a child by force. The Krikstar counselor's 4 eyes fixed on Thomas. We did ask. Your captain refused. Under Code 447b, subsection 12, if a species refuses to provide samples, we may obtain them through necessary means. The archive must be complete. Thomas looked around the chamber. Surely someone would see the insanity in this. But most delegates looked bored. A few whispered among themselves. The Zereth ambassador was actually asleep, its 6 legs curled beneath it. You're telling me, Thomas said slowly, that council law allows you to kidnap children? We collected a genetic sample, the Krikstar corrected. The specimen will be treated well. Once our studies are complete, it will be returned. This process typically takes 3 to 5 years. Her name is Emma. She's 7 years old. And you want to keep her for 5 years. The High Counselor's light pulsed. Ambassador Webb, you must understand the galactic perspective. Humans have been spacefaring for less than a decade. You are infants in cosmic terms. The Krikstar archive represents the greatest genetic library in the galaxy. Participation is not optional. Your emotional attachment to a single specimen is touching but irrelevant. Thomas felt something crack inside him. These beings, these ancient species who considered themselves enlightened, saw humans as nothing more than curiosities. Emma was a specimen to them. Human feelings were irrelevant. Then let me make this clear, Thomas said, his voice carrying through the vast chamber. If Emma Chin is not returned within 72 hours, Earth will consider it an act of war. Now he had their attention. The chamber fell silent. Then the laughter began again, louder this time. The Draken Counselor, a massive reptilian creature, spoke for the first time. War? Human, your species has 12 colony worlds and a fleet of perhaps 300 vessels. The Krikstar command thousands of systems and possess weapons that could atomize your homeworld from 100 light-years away. Do not make threats you cannot possibly fulfill. The child will be returned when our studies are complete, the Krikstar counselor said dismissively. Not before. If humanity wishes to declare war over this, then humanity will learn why primitive species do not threaten council members. You are dismissed, Ambassador Webb. Thomas stood there, rage and helplessness warring inside him. Every instinct told him to argue, to fight, but he could see the truth in their alien eyes. They didn't take humanity seriously. To them, humans were barely more significant than insects. He transmitted one message back to Earth before he left. They refuse. Recommend we proceed with contingency plan. On Earth, in a bunker deep beneath the Pacific Ocean, Fleet Admiral Richardson read the message. Around him sat the Joint Chiefs and President Elena Martinez. They refuse, the President said quietly. They actually refuse. They think we're too primitive to fight back. Richardson said. "They're about to learn why that's a mistake." "Activate Operation Artemis," President Martinez ordered. "Bring Emma home." The galaxy didn't know the truth about humanity. They saw what humans wanted them to see: a young species technologically inferior, clumsy in their dealings with advanced civilizations. What the galaxy didn't know was that humanity had been preparing for exactly this scenario since first contact. Deep in the Kuiper Belt, beyond Neptune's orbit, a massive structure hung in the darkness. The galaxy knew it as Research Station Omega, a human facility for studying exotic matter. What it actually housed was humanity's greatest secret: the Reaper fleet. Admiral Richardson stood in the command center watching 30 warships power up for the first time. These weren't the primitive vessels the galaxy had seen. These were weapons platforms built from reverse-engineered alien technology, improved upon by human ingenuity, and designed with one purpose: to win wars against superior forces. "How long did we spend building these?" Captain Sarah Chin asked. She'd been promoted to Richardson's tactical officer after the incident. Her request had been immediate: "Let me help bring Emma home." 5 years, Richardson replied. "Since the moment we made first contact." The president took one look at the Galactic Council and realized we'd joined a galaxy of predators. "Lions don't respect sheep, Sarah. They only respect other predators." The ships of the Reaper fleet looked wrong, alien. Their hulls were matte black, absorbing sensor sweeps. They didn't have the bulky reactor cores of standard human vessels. Instead, they used quantum fluctuation drives, technology humanity had stolen from a crashed Zereth probe and improved to efficiency levels the Zereth themselves had never achieved. "The Krixtar have Emma in their archive station," Sarah said, pulling up a hologram. "It's in the Tartarus Nebula, Sector 997. Heavily defended. 3 battleships, 12 destroyers, orbital defense platforms, and a planetary shield generator. And they think we'll never find it, much less attack it," Richardson said. "They're wrong on both counts. Launch the fleet. Silent running protocols. I want us in Krixtar space before they know we're coming." The Reaper fleet slipped out of Sol system like ghosts. No hyperspace jumps that would create detectable energy signatures. Instead, they used a network of quantum-entangled wormholes humanity had been secretly deploying throughout the galaxy for 3 years. Move through one gate, emerge instantly light years away. The galaxy thought humans barely understood faster-than-light travel. They had no idea humanity had already moved beyond it. While the fleet moved toward Krixtar space, Ambassador Webb created a diplomatic diversion. He filed formal protests with 17 different council subcommittees. He requested mediation. He demanded arbitration. He buried the council in bureaucracy, keeping their attention focused on legal procedures while military forces moved into position. On Centrum, the council barely noticed. The Krixtar counselor was already bored with the human complaints. "They're like children," it told the Draken counselor privately. "They don't understand that some species are simply superior to others. Their file indicates they're unusually aggressive for primitives," the Draken replied. "Perhaps we should monitor their military response." "What military response?" "Our intelligence shows their largest vessel is a colony ship. They have no warships worth mentioning. The humans will complain, we will ignore them, and eventually they will accept their place in the galactic hierarchy." What Krixtar intelligence didn't know was that every research station humanity had built was actually a disguised military facility. Every mining operation, in remote systems, was actually a supply depot. Every scientific expedition was mapping Krixtar territory. Humanity had spent 5 years acting like ignorant newcomers while preparing for war. In the Tartarus Nebula on the archive station, Emma Chin sat in a sterile white room. Krixtar scientists had taken samples: blood, tissue, hair. They'd run her through scanners. They treated her with clinical detachment, like she was an interesting specimen and nothing more. But Emma was Sarah Chen's daughter. And Sarah Chen had raised her daughter to be observant, to be smart, to survive. Emma had been watching. She'd counted the guards, memorized the patrol patterns, noted the locations of security sensors. She was 7 years old, terrified, and thousands of light years from home. But she was also human, and humans didn't give up. When the guard changed shifts, Emma saw her chance. The door's security panel was biometric, but she'd watched the guards use it. She pressed her hand to it and watched it flash red. Of course, it only worked for Krixtar hands. But Emma had stolen a guard's glove during one of the examinations. She pulled it from her hiding spot and pressed it to the panel. The door opened. Emma ran into the corridor, her heart pounding. Alarms began to wail. She didn't know where she was going, but she knew she had to try. Behind her, chittering commands echoed through the station. She rounded a corner and stopped. A Krikstar guard blocked her path, energy weapon raised. Emma raised her hands. "I just want to go home." The guard's translator clicked. "Specimens do not escape. You will be returned to containment." Then the station shook. Emergency lights flashed. An explosion somewhere in the distance made the floor buckle. The guard's communicator crackled with panicked Krikstar voices. Emma didn't understand the words, but she understood the tone. Something had just gone very, very wrong for her captors. The Reaper fleet emerged from quantum gates at the edge of the Tartarus Nebula like vengeful specters. 30 warships, each one bristling with weapons the Krikstar had never seen. They moved in perfect formation, their targeting computers already locked onto every Krikstar vessel and installation. Admiral Richardson stood on the bridge of the Retribution, humanity's first true dreadnought. "All ships weapons free. Target the battleships first. I want those archive station shields down in 3 minutes." The Krikstar orbital defense grid detected the human fleet immediately. Alarms sounded across all military installations. On the archive station, Commander Vextil received the alert with disbelief. "Human vessels?" Vextil's 4 eyes widened. "There are no human military assets in this sector." "Verify." "Verification confirmed, Commander." 30 warships, unknown configuration, approaching at 0.7 light speed. "They're not slowing down." Vextil felt a spike of concern. "Battle stations. Launch all fighters. Get those battleships between us and them." The 3 Krikstar battleships, each one 10 times the size of the largest human colony ship, moved to intercept. Their commanders were confident. Humans were primitives. Whatever ships they'd scrape together would be crushed easily. The first Krikstar battleship, Sovereign Terror, opened fire at maximum range. Dozens of plasma lances, each one capable of melting through a kilometer of armor, streaked toward the human fleet. The Retribution didn't even slow down. Its point defense grid, a web of AI-controlled lasers firing thousands of pulses per second, intercepted every plasma lance. The bright orange streaks simply vanished, vaporized before they could connect. "That's impossible," breathed the Sovereign Terror's captain. "They're targeting speed." The Retribution returned fire. Humanity's primary weapon was something they developed in absolute secrecy, the MAC cannon or magnetic accelerator cannon. Each round was a solid tungsten carbide slug the size of a bus, accelerated to a fraction of light speed. No shields, no energy weapons, just mass and velocity. The slug hit the Sovereign Terror amidships. The kinetic impact released energy equivalent to a nuclear weapon. The battleship's shields held for exactly 1.2 seconds before collapsing. The slug punched through 2 kilometers of armor and exited the other side. The Sovereign Terror split in half, its fusion reactors detonating in a brilliant flash. "First battleship destroyed," Sarachin reported calmly. "Target the second." The other 2 Krikstar battleships opened fire, along with the 12 destroyers. The space between the fleets filled with energy beams, missiles, and plasma bursts. The Krikstar were throwing everything they had at the human ships. The Reaper fleet flowed through the incoming fire like water, their movements coordinated by quantum-entangled communication systems. Where the Krikstar used predictable tactics learned over millennia, humans fought with unpredictability, creativity, and ruthless efficiency. The Retribution rolled, dodging a spread of antimatter missiles, then fired again. Another battleship died, its hull punctured in 6 places. The third tried to retreat, but 3 human destroyers had already flanked it. MAC rounds hit from multiple angles, and the battleship came apart like shattered glass. "All battleships destroyed," Sarah reported. "Destroyers breaking formation. The orbital stations are firing." The archive station's defensive platforms unleashed torrents of fire. Energy shields, particle beams, railguns. The Krikstar had every defensive weapon known to the Council species. But humans had something the Krikstar didn't: adaptive tactics. The Reaper fleet split into smaller groups, each one targeting a different platform. They fired, relocated, fired again from a new angle. The Krikstar platforms were designed to defend against conventional assaults, not against enemies who thought in 3 dimensions and moved like schools of fish. Within 8 minutes, half the platforms were destroyed. The others were damaged and failing. Inside the archive station, Commander Vextil watched the displays in horror. 30 human ships had just annihilated the most heavily defended facility in Krikstar space. How are they doing this?" "Commander, they're hailing us," a technician reported. Admiral Richardson's face appeared on the screen. His expression was carved from stone. "Commander Vextil, this is Admiral James Richardson of the United Earth Fleet. You have one of our children. Her name is Emma Chin. You will return her immediately, or I will destroy this station and every Krikstar vessel within 100 light years." Vextil's translator crackled with his response. "You cannot, the Council will." "I don't care about the Council," Richardson interrupted. "I care about one 7-year-old girl who was taken from her mother. You have 60 seconds to bring her to your main hangar bay. Refuse and I start shooting again. We are a Council species. You cannot attack us without." A Mac round from the Retribution obliterated one of the archive station's docking spires. The entire structure shuddered. 50 seconds, Richardson said coldly. Vextil made a decision. Emma Chin was just one specimen. The archive contained genetic data from millions of species. It couldn't be lost because of one human child. "Bring the specimen to Hangar Bay 7 immediately." Emma was being dragged through corridors by panicked guards when the announcement came. She was pushed into the hangar where a small Krikstar shuttle waited. The guards threw her inside and sealed the door. The shuttle launched, autopilot engaged, heading straight for the Retribution. Sarah Chin was waiting in the hangar bay when the shuttle landed. The hatch opened. And there was Emma, dirty, scared, but alive. "Mommy?" Sarah ran to her daughter, scooping her up in her arms. Emma clung to her, sobbing. "I knew you'd come. I knew it. Always, baby. Always." The news of the Krikstar archive station's defeat spread through the galaxy like wildfire. Within hours, every Council species knew humanity had attacked a founding member species, destroyed a fleet, and forced the surrender of an installation that had stood for 10,000 years. The Galactic Council convened an emergency session. This time, every delegate was present and paying attention. The Krikstar Councilor stood, its chitinous plates trembling with rage. "The humans have committed an act of war. They destroyed 3 battleships, 12 destroyers, and damaged the archive station itself. This aggression cannot stand." Ambassador Webb stood at the human podium, but this time he wasn't alone. Admiral Richardson stood beside him in his military uniform, and behind them holographic displays showed the 30 ships of the Reaper fleet. "You took our child," Webb said simply. "We took her back." "You slaughtered thousands of Krikstar," the counselor shrieked. "Your forces opened fire first," Richardson replied coldly. "Our boarding parties found the logs. Your commanders fired on human vessels in what you considered an easy battle. They were wrong. Every Krikstar death is on your hands, not ours." The High Counselor's crystalline form pulsed with barely contained energy. "Humans, you have revealed military capabilities far beyond what you reported to the Council. This is a violation of..." "Of what?" Webb interrupted. "Council law requires member species to register all military assets. Earth isn't a member species. We applied for membership 3 years ago. You denied our application, stating we were too primitive and aggressive. So we're not bound by Council regulations." A ripple of surprise went through the chamber. The human was right. The Draken Counselor rose, its massive form intimidating. "Then perhaps we should discuss membership now. But first, you must explain how a species barely capable of interstellar flight built warships that defeated the Krikstar." Richardson smiled, and it wasn't a pleasant expression. "You want to know our secret? Fine. I'll tell you. Every species in this council became complacent. You've had peace for so long that you forgot what war actually means. You have bigger ships, older technology, more resources. But you know what you don't have." He let the question hang in the air. "You don't have desperation. You don't have innovation. You don't have the kind of creative violence that comes from being the underdog. Humans have been fighting each other for our entire history. We've waged wars with sticks, swords, guns, bombs, and nuclear weapons. We've conquered our own planet 1,000 times over. When you dismissed us as primitives, we went home and asked ourselves one question. How do we beat species that have a 1,000-year head start?" Richardson tapped a control, and the holographic displays changed. They showed human research facilities, testing grounds, and manufacturing plants. "We cheated. We stole. We reverse-engineered everything we could get our hands on. And then we improved it. Your shields are designed to stop energy weapons, so we used kinetic weapons. Your tactics are predictable, honed over centuries, so we fight with no pattern at all. Your ships are powerful, so we made ours faster and more agile." The Zerith Counselor, finally awake and paying attention, spoke for the first time in the session. "You built an entire hidden military fleet in just 5 years? That's impossible." "That's humanity," Webb said. You thought we were slow, primitive, barely worth noticing. That was your mistake. We let you think that. While you were ignoring us, we were preparing. The High Counselor's light flared. This changes nothing. The Krikstar were exercising their legal rights under the archive mandate. You had no justification for. They kidnapped the child, Sarah Chen's voice rang out. Every eye in the chamber turned to her. She wasn't part of the delegation, but Admiral Richardson had brought her anyway. She stood at the podium, still wearing her uniform, her eyes hard. Your laws, your codes, your ancient traditions, none of that matters to me, Sarah said. They took my daughter. They treated her like property, like an object to be studied. And when I begged them to stop, they laughed. So yes, we came with warships. Yes, we destroyed their fleet. And I'd do it again without hesitation. You cannot simply ignore galactic law because of emotional attachments, the High Counselor said, but there was uncertainty in its voice now. Watch us, Sarah replied. Admiral Richardson stepped forward again. Here's what's going to happen. The Galactic Council is going to review the archive mandate. You're going to add provisions requiring explicit consent from all species, including protections for juveniles. You're going to acknowledge that taking children without consent is not science, it's kidnapping. And if we refuse? The Krikstar Counselor demanded. Richardson's smile returned. Then we'll go to every species in the galaxy and tell them about the archive mandate. We'll explain how the Council allows founding members to kidnap citizens of newer species with impunity. We'll show them what happened when we objected. And then we'll ask them, if it happened to humanity, could it happen to you? The chamber fell silent. Many of the younger Council species were already looking at each other nervously. The implication was clear. If the Krikstar could do this to humans, they could do it to anyone. The humans are attempting to divide the Council, the Draken Counselor observed. No, Webb said. We're attempting to fix a broken system. The galaxy has rules, but those rules only protect the powerful. Emma Chin is 7 years old. She did nothing wrong. She was taken from her mother and held against her will. If your laws allow that, then your laws are unjust. The High Counselor pulsed with light for several long moments. Finally it spoke. The Council will review the archive mandate. Ambassador Webb, Admiral Richardson, you will remain on Centrum for the deliberations. Will remain, Richardson said. But the Reaper fleet stays in Krikstar space. Just in case you need a reminder that humanity doesn't make empty threats. While the Council deliberated, something unexpected happened. 3 more species came forward with their own stories about the Krikstar archive. The Valorn, a species of peaceful traders, reported that 12 of their children had been taken over the past century. The Mithril, crystal-based life forms, had lost 17. The Quen, aquatic beings from a water world, had lost too many to count. We thought it was legal, a Valorn representative said quietly. The Council said it was necessary. We filed protests, but nothing changed. We're small species. We have no power. So we accepted it. Ambassador Webb realized something terrible. Humanity wasn't the first victim. They were just the first to fight back. How many species? He asked the Council. How many have had their people taken by the archive? The High Counselor dimmed. The archive has collected samples from all 63 member species as required by law. Samples? Webb repeated. You mean people. Living beings. The archive mandate. Is slavery, Sarah Chin interrupted. She'd been given temporary diplomatic status for the proceedings. You're taking sentient beings against their will and holding them for years. That's not science. That's not preservation. That's slavery with a prettier name. The Krikstar Counselor stood abruptly. The archive has preserved genetic diversity across the galaxy. When the plague of darkness swept through the outer rim, it was our archive samples that allowed the Valorn to rebuild their population. When the Mithril homeworld was bombarded by meteors, we provided the genetic material to restore their species. We have saved entire civilizations. By traumatizing how many individuals? Richardson asked. How many children have spent years in your facilities? How many families have been torn apart? The needs of the many outweigh the needs of the few, the High Counselor intoned. This is basic logic. That's easy to say when you're not the one being taken, Sarah shot back. The debate raged for 3 days. Humanity had inadvertently sparked a galactic crisis. The Council was divided. The founding species argued that the archive was necessary, that it had saved countless lives. The younger species, emboldened by humanity's example, demanded reform. On the 4th day, the Krikstar made their move. Admiral Richardson was in his quarters on Centrum when the alert came through. Sir, we're detecting Krigstar fleet movements. Multiple battle groups converging on human space. Richardson's blood ran cold. How many ships? Initial count shows 300 vessels, sir. It's their entire first armada. The Krigstar weren't trying to negotiate anymore. They were going to make an example of humanity. Destroy Earth, scatter the colonies, show the galaxy what happened to species that defied founding members. Richardson ran to the council chamber. The Krigstar counselor was already speaking, its voice triumphant. The human homeworld will be quarantined for violation of galactic peace. Our forces are en route to establish control of Sol system. Any human vessels that resist will be destroyed. You're invading Earth? Webb said, disbelieving. We are restoring order, the Krigstar counselor corrected. Humans have proven too dangerous to remain uncontrolled. You will be placed under council supervision until you learn proper galactic etiquette. Richardson pushed through the chamber doors. Call off your fleet. Now. Or what, Admiral? You have 30 ships. We have 300. Your little Reaper fleet impressed us at the archive station, but you cannot win a war of attrition. Surrender now and Earth will be spared. Resist and your homeworld burns. Richardson looked at the High Counselor. Are you allowing this? The crystalline being dimmed. The Krigstar are within their rights to respond to human aggression. We cannot intervene in matters of species security. Then you're all cowards, Sarah spat. Richardson tapped his communicator. Admiral Richardson to Reaper Fleet. Execute Protocol Harbinger. What is Protocol Harbinger? The Draken counselor asked. You're about to find out. Across the galaxy, the real human military revealed itself. The Reaper fleet had been a test, a demonstration. The real fleet had been building for 5 years in the dark spaces between stars, in hidden shipyards that used the cover of nebulae and asteroid fields. 200 warships activated their drives. Not 30. 200. But that wasn't the terrifying part. The terrifying part was the weapons platforms. Humanity had seeded space around key council worlds with autonomous defense satellites. Small, invisible to most sensors, each one armed with antimatter charges. Not enough to destroy planets, but more than enough to cripple orbital infrastructure. We've been preparing for this since first contact, Richardson said quietly. Did you really think we'd build 30 ships and call it a day? We're humans. We don't do anything halfway. He pulled up tactical displays. Right now, the Krigstar First Armada is entering human space. They think they're going to attack a primitively defended homeworld. What they're actually going to fly into is the most heavily defended system in galactic history. Earth has planetary defense grids, lunar MAC cannons, asteroid field mine networks, and a standing defense fleet of 80 warships. You're bluffing, the Krigstar counselor said, but its voice wavered. Am I? Your fleet will reach Earth in 6 hours. Want to watch what happens when they arrive? The chamber fell silent. The delegates looked at each other. Could the humans really have built such extensive defenses in only 5 years? You're insane, the Draken counselor said. You've militarized your entire species. No, Webb corrected. We've protected our entire species. There's a difference. The High Counselor pulsed brightly. This is madness. The galaxy has been at peace for 1,000 years. And that peace was built on letting the powerful do whatever they wanted to the weak, Richardson said. You want to know why humans seem so violent? Because we. The Galactic Council chamber looked different now. Where once only the founding species had held positions of prominence, smaller species now sat at elevated podiums. The reforms had changed everything. Ambassador Webb stood at the human delegation's new position, front and center equal to the founding members. Beside him, Admiral Richardson wore his dress uniform, and Emma Chen, now 9 years old, sat in a special observer's chair. She'd insisted on attending today's session. The Council recognizes Ambassador Webb of Earth, the High Counselor announced. Webb stood holding a data tablet. Honored Council, it's been 1 year since the archive mandate was reformed. I'm pleased to report that 17 species have filed requests for the return of their people from Krigstar facilities. 12 of those requests have been fulfilled. The remaining 5 are in process. The Krigstar counselor, a new one, the old one had resigned in disgrace, nodded stiffly. The archive cooperates fully with the new regulations. We acknowledge our past mistakes. It wasn't much of an apology, but it was progress. However, Webb continued, today we're here to discuss a new proposal. Earth wishes to establish the Sentinel Initiative. Murmurs rippled through the chamber. The Draken counselor leaned forward. Explain this initiative, Ambassador. The Sentinel Initiative will be a multi-species defense force dedicated to protecting smaller civilizations from exploitation. Any species that feels threatened can request Sentinel protection. The force will be led by humanity but will include volunteers from all Council species. You wish to become the galaxy's police force? The Zeroth counselor asked skeptically. We wish to become the galaxy's protectors, Richardson corrected. There are hundreds of pre-spaceflight civilizations out there. Dozens of young spacefaring species like we were a year ago. They need someone watching out for them. Someone who'll actually care when they're victimized. The Valorn representative stood, her translucent form shimmering. The Valorn support this initiative. For centuries we had no one to turn to when the powerful exploited us. Humanity showed us that things can change. We wish to help them extend that protection to others. The Mithril also support this proposal, added the crystalline delegate. One by one the smaller species voiced their support. The founding species looked uncomfortable. They'd ruled the galaxy for millennia, and now these primitives, these humans, were reshaping the entire power structure. The Council will vote, the High Counselor said. All in favor of the Sentinel Initiative? The vote was overwhelming. 47 species in favor, 12 opposed, for abstaining. Webb smiled. The Sentinels will begin operations within 3 months. We're accepting applications from all species for command positions. This won't be a human military force pretending to be multi-species. It will truly represent the galaxy's diversity. After the session ended, Emma walked with her mother through Centrum's gardens. The Ringworld's artificial sky showed a sunset that never actually happened, but it was beautiful nonetheless. Mom, do you think we did the right thing? Emma asked. Starting all this? Sarah looked down at her daughter. Emma had grown in the past year, not just physically but emotionally. She'd testified before the council about her experience in the archive. She'd become a symbol of why the reforms were necessary. It was a heavy burden for a 9-year-old. I think, Sarah said carefully, that we did what we had to do. Sometimes the right thing isn't easy. Sometimes it means fighting. But yes, sweetheart. I think we did the right thing. The Crickstar kids at the cultural exchange program still don't like me, Emma said quietly. They say I ruined their species' reputation. How do you feel about that? Emma thought for a moment. I feel sorry for them. They didn't take me. Their parents' generation did. But they're the ones who have to live with the shame of it. That's not fair either. Sarah stopped walking and knelt down to Emma's level. You know what that means? It means you understand something most adults don't. Actions have consequences that ripple outward. The Crickstar who took you thought they were just following protocol. They didn't think about you as a person. And now their children pay the price for that mistake. So what do? We make sure it doesn't happen again. That's what the Sentinels are for. We protect people so that no child, human or alien, has to go through what you did. Emma nodded slowly. I want to join the Sentinels when I'm old enough. Of course you do, Sarah laughed. You're my daughter. Across the galaxy, in a shipyard orbiting Mars, the first Sentinel-class vessel was taking shape. It would be called the Guardian, and it would represent something new in galactic history. A warship designed not for conquest but for protection. Admiral Richardson stood on the observation deck watching construction crews, human, Valorn, Mithril, and a dozen other species, working together. A Crickstar engineer was explaining shield configurations to a human technician. A Draken pilot was training alongside human fighter crews. You think this will work, sir? Captain Marcus Park asked. He'd been promoted after the Archive Station battle. I think it has to work, Richardson replied. We kicked over the galaxy's anthill. Now we have to prove we did it for the right reasons. The Sentinels will show everyone that humanity doesn't just fight for ourselves. We fight for anyone who can't fight back. That's a big responsibility. Yes, but someone has to do it. Might as well be us. On Earth, in a classroom in New Delhi, a teacher was showing her students footage from the Battle of Seoul. The children watched with wide eyes as the human fleet defended their homeworld. Remember, the teacher said, we didn't win because we were stronger. We won because we were smarter, more prepared, and willing to do whatever it took to protect our home. That's the human way. We adapt. We overcome. We never give up. One student raised his hand. Teacher, are we still the underdog species? The teacher smiled. What do you think? The students looked at each other. One girl spoke up. I think we were underdogs. But now we're something else. Now we're the ones other underdogs look up to. Exactly right, the teacher said. And that means we have a responsibility. We have to live up to what we showed the galaxy. We have to be worthy of the respect we earned. In the Krikstar homeworld's capital, in a private chamber, the former archive director Vex still watched news broadcasts from across the galaxy. Story after story about the Sentinel Initiative. About humanity's rise to power. About the reforms that had dismantled centuries of Krikstar authority. We were doing important work, Vex still said to no one. The archive saved species. Preserved genetic diversity. The humans don't understand. But even as Vex still said it, doubt crept in. Images of Emma Chin testifying before the council with tears streaming down her face, played in memory. Had the archive's mission justified the trauma? Had preservation of genetic material been worth the cost and suffering? Vex still didn't have an answer. But the galaxy had decided. The age of taking without consent, of exploiting without consequence, was over. A new age had begun. The age of sentinels. The age of accountability. The age of humanity. And across 1,000 worlds, beings who had suffered in silence, who had accepted their fate as inevitable, who had believed the powerful could never be challenged, looked up at the stars and dared to hope. Because if humanity could change the galaxy in 1 year, what else was possible? The story of Emma Chin and her mother Sarah became legend. Parents told it to their children. Teachers used it in lessons. Diplomats cited it in negotiations. They took one human child and humanity took their galaxy, not through conquest but through an unwavering refusal to accept injustice as normal. And that made all the difference.